Mego Vanen, everyone. So today I wanted to cover how I run my Chapter 3 and my free-to-play and also my light spend account. I guess light spending is a relative term. I'm by no means an expert or in a top rating guild, so this is really just more about what I found works for me at my collection power. And I guess I just hope it provides additional information to other people, how they might do things a little differently or see how somebody else does it, somebody that they know in their guild. And then, I just want to say that basically, I think there are still ways in which there's quite a bit of ways in which I can still improve. So I'd really love to hear from others what they do differently or how I might improve, the way I'm running things. Like I said, this is just how I do it. So it'd be cool to know how other people do it differently and how I might improve. So I want to talk through, first of all, on my more spendy account, how I run Rivendell right now. At the moment, I'm running them with Ballin instead of Naramiri, and there's a lot of people in our guild who use Naramiri at the top as the fifth. I like using Ballin right now just because that saves Naramiri for a different team that really needs a lot of healing, to kind of help me squeeze out some extra points through all my team comps. With um, basically this team, right? Elrond and Arwen already provide, a fair amount of healing. So I just feel like Naramiri is a bit overkill. Um, and if I can get by without her on difficulty 4, I'd prefer it. And so in this case, I do use Ballin. One thing I think in particular with chapter 3, and this is probably, I mean, it's true of all the chapters, right? But, it's just really how you set things up. So ideally, in this chapter, you want Arwen to take the first mark. So the reason for that is when she takes it, and I think here when I open, she does not take the first mark. So I end up, right, it was Ballin. So I end up resetting. For this one, I've just learned if Arwen doesn't take it, reset it. The other thing that's important for her to potentially take it first is to put her in this spot on the grid, because that spot tends to take an unequal share of the first hit for whatever reason. I don't know. It's a positional thing in this game. Um, so with her taking the first hit, she can then use her special 2 to cleanse and grant herself immunity. And then it's basically from there, her just getting a full round of hits without dying because of the immunity. Now, the hilarious thing here, right? I've talked about all this setup stuff. She's going to actually get die in this particular run before I can do that. So, so that's the irony here. But I just wanted to talk about it a little bit and then, just say, well, okay, so it wasn't ideal, but it worked out anyway. Um, the other thing that I really just want to cover a little bit about, so I think I'm using Last Stand on Ball in here, which works out great because, he's going to get knocked here in a second and then he can he can cleanse his mark off. So Last Stand knocks it down and then knocks a couple of them off, and then he basically cleanses the rest off. So that's one of the reasons why I like use Ballin here. Just with that, basically his special 2 is the only reason he's in this. And then what is it? His basic also pulls some Banes off. But the other thing here, I guess, what I want to kind of showcase a little bit is, I think like a lot of people, trying to figure out glyphs is a little bit of an issue. And then also on top of that, just because of the interface, like the management of them is a real pain. So I've talked about this a little bit, and I understand people prefer, maybe 3 times Bloodlust, and that seems to be a bit of meta for a lot of people. Um, I still feel there's value in running personally Armor Pierce for my DPS characters for the most part, just because where I am currently struggling is chapter 4 because I can get 6 Gandalf shards from all the other chapters. So I'd rather have Armor Pierce for damage on for the most part. And so here, having said that, chapter 3, Bloodlust is much more important than Armor Pierce to have on your DPS. But again, I'm not going to go through the pain that is the interface and the cost and the issues with glyph management. So these are still very doable, I think, with different glyph setups and suboptimal glyphs. So in the description to this video, I will include the link to the full run of this, so you can check that out if you want. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing. I just want to talk a little bit about the setup and the team comp. Elves are on this team 6-star Elrond, 7-star the other 3 elves, and then I think it's 4 or 5-star Balin, and he's got nothing special in terms of abilities or gear other than basically his special 2 to level 4. All right, so this run 1.5. I think most people know by now kind of how to run that elves, but just in case you didn't know, the real tip there is to run Arwen in lead and let her take the capture, and don't pull it off with Eladon until she can, and let her try and grant immunity to herself. A little easier on difficulty 3 than difficulty 4. The other setup that I want to talk about that I'm running right now, and I actually run this on both my free-to-play and my regular account, is how I basically can get over 1 million with the Rohan. So I'm going to pull this up here. For my free-to-play account, I only have 5-star elves, and they haven't really put any work into it. So I will, I guess, give a preface to saying that for my free-to-play, I have a really well-built Rohan. I felt that was important for me in Arena early on, and then as the Elrond meta took over, I've probably lagged a little bit on elves, certainly on this account, but I'm doing it on my main elves on my main account, and so I just want to kind of try different other teams just to see how they work without necessarily focusing full elves here. But without the full elves, I'm still doing over 10 mil in raids on my free to play, and that's with me kind of at this point just not putting a lot of effort into glyphs, just due to time constraints mainly. So the setup on this is such that you're going to get additional points from Ugluk. So I use Ugluk as lead. He gets additional healing points from landing his Banes. The healing isn't a lot of points, but it adds. And then, of course, Ugg has a lot of block chance, and then Eowyn via her defensive also does a lot of blocking. So there's additional point opportunities there. Again, with the opening setup on this, you really want Lembas on Eowyn so that she can essentially open with her special 2 and cleanse out that slow. And then your ideal situation here, similar to Arwen, is you want Eomer to take the mark. Otherwise, I just end up resetting, because what's going to happen is you're essentially playing hot potato. I call hot potato between the people who can provoke, and then Eomer, by taking the first, 5, 6 maybe hits, he can, I think sometimes even have 7. So now he's at 7. As long as he can get, 3 or 4 kills, that's going to bring that number down quite a bit, and it'll really help you kind of squeeze out some to the end. Again, kind of like what I talked about with Elro here, really probably Bloodlust is essential for Eomer here, but again, I'm not going to go through fixing it constantly back and forth with him. And I do use Lembas on Eothane, not as essential in this chapter, but I've talked a little bit with chapter 4 in Arena how I do like to use Lembas on him. So in this case, basically you can see I use Ugluk to pull the mark off, and Wubite I don't want to taunt with him right away. Just want to use his slow. That's why he's there. And then I want to keep rotating around until I'm at a point where I want Eothane to then pull the mark off Ugluk. And then I want to pull it off Eothane using Wubete. Is that where? Let's see if I get that right. There's a point here, yeah, where there's just a lot of points from. So his blocking, you can tell via the weak-minded. So he's getting some points there. and then with the weak-minded landing from, so Ugluck gets points from both the block, right, and from the landing of the weak-minded itself, since that's a bane. And then it's just a matter of, just working down Aomer with every kill you can, and passing that mark back and forth. When you get the opportunity to cleanse it, you can do that. And then with Eowyn, and anytime you cleanse the mark, then it should, as long as the Eomer ad is up, you should take the next one. That is contingent upon no one else having provoke up. So Eomer or Eothane still has 2 stacks here. The other thing I want to talk about with glyphs, you do have to, I've found with this, doing it this way, you do have to tweak out Wu Beite in particular a little bit with some speed, maybe a little focus to land the slow. So you do kind of, especially if you're running difficulty 4, have to manage your speed a little bit on him. And then the setup on my regular account is essentially the same. I do a slightly different open in terms of the fact that I use both Ugg and Eothane to provoke. So we want, again, Eowyn to clear, Eomer to take the mark, Ugluck will pull, and then just the way the tournament works here, I use Eothane to also grab. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I don't use Ugluck right away. I use Eothane. Apologies for that. Then I'll use Ugluck later. Again, I'm going to put the videos down. I'm not going to run through the whole video, but just talking about through the setup and the general concept of it and letting you work through it if you want. The other thing I want to cover a little bit, so using Last Stand in this instance in particular, it's a little easier on difficulty 4 because you take a lot more damage if you're going to be using Last Stand. I find that characters that I have a little bit weaker, so my Wu Beite in particular, he's 7-star due to the guild farm, but other than that, only 3 abilities, and I think gear 7 on him. So nothing special really, so he's a little bit weaker. So he's a little easier. Last Stand makes a little more sense because he's actually easier to get down to 25%. So I'm still kind of working through that, using Last Stand, it doesn't always work right just because of the fact that if you have a beefier character with Last Stand on it, then that character is essentially going to take full 10 stacks of capture before they even get down to 25% health. So they'll never get to a point where they'll just clear the mark and do a reset on their turn meter. So I just want to so basically, that puts me right now, I feel really good about it because I have 2 teams doing 1.5 mil on this right now, using some of those strategies, a Rohan comp, and then the standard elves. I think everyone, that's where they probably start with their difficulty 4. And then, Gaz is actually one where I do spend the time to go through and put Bloodlust on him because he just is so essential with that in this chapter for scoring extra points. And then again, I talked about how that allows me to free up Near Miri off this team to run her on a different team, just to provide some healing. And then my free to play, I'm doing 2, I guess that's 2 Gandalf shards in this chapter. I haven't been putting as much work into this account, especially once glyphs hit, just because of the time involved. So, Waterhouse, if you're watching, sorry, not doing as much work on this guy. Kind of even, really glossing over the runs on him, but still, does about, I think, 10 mil, a little over 10 million in raids on that account without a lot of work in glyphs. So definitely think if understanding mechanics of chapters is important in being able to succeed. So I hope this video provides some information. Again, love to hear from you what you're doing differently, and anything that I'm doing incorrectly, I'd love to know about it. Thanks for watching.